more thing to do here. All right, I know I'm live. Just give me a second, folks. I'm waiting for one more program to load. I jumped the gun. So I will turn the music on in a second. Hang tight here. I got to get this thing figured out. Come on, computer. You can do it. Put your processor into it. There we go. Got it. All right, let's roll.
This is the Okayest Hunter podcast. Never pass on shooter bucks, because that's just meat in the freezer. It's your tag, you hunt how you want. This is Okayest Hunter.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Okayest Hunter podcast, coming at you from Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, in the Okayest Hunter podcast studio, brought to you by Half Rack. Check out half-rack.com. Use code OHP. That's, what is the phonetic for that? Oscar, Hilo, Papa, for 15% off. I have, my forearm hurts from screwing in all of these hunter hanger pegs. I got one up here for my grunt tube that I thought would be fun to put up. I got 2 here for the bear bow we're giving away. I got 4 on the podcast table for the microphones and headphones. So I went a little ham with the hunter hangers because once you use one, you realize how effective they are, and you're going to start putting them everywhere. So I'm sure those are, I don't know if they're going to sell out or what, but I think they've been selling a bunch of them. They're pretty cool, useful, practical little tool, and they can hold up. I forget the weight rating on them, but they can hold more than your average bear in terms of what you can hang on it. It's got these 3 little pegs, so if you need to kind of secure something and prevent it from falling off, like I do with this bow over here, it's pretty neat. So be sure to check those guys out. Head to their website, use the code, all that jazz. We're also in partnership with Latitude Outdoors, so excited to get into their new platforms this season. Their Speed Stick, Carbon Speed Stick series that won Best Product at ATA. I've been rocking their Method 2 saddle. Derek's got their classic saddle. Just, if you watch along on our new YouTube series, the We'll See How It Goes season 1 of the Okayest Hunter show. Greg's in the saddle. I'm in the saddle. Derek's in the saddle. But we're making good use of it. It's a good additive to our arsenal. It's what I exclusively hunt out of now is that 2-piece system, and I really, really enjoy it. Beyond that, check out SpartanForge.ai. SpartanForge.ai is their website. So it's not .com, it's .ai. The most recent episode just dropped on the YouTube channel for Okayest Hunter. If you're not already subscribed, go check it out. Hit subscribe. Search Okayest Hunter on YouTube. It's episode 7, Hot as Balls, I think is the title. But we have a pretty fun time in the beginning of that one, chatting about Spartan Forge and how our wives all think we're like talking to some other girl or Jake from State Farm. But really, it's just Spartan Forge. We're on our phones that often talking about it. Again, code OHP. They'll save you some money over there as well. I think it's 20% off of Spartan Forge annual subscription. So it's a good chunk of change you'll save on that one. You can also check out Method Archery. We were going to do a content shoot with those guys, and everyone got way too busy, unfortunately. So we had to kind of scale that back a little bit and reschedule, which is mainly unfortunate because I have a brand new bow that I need to get set up so I can start shooting and get new arrows for. So we're going to have to rain check that one or something, but those guys just rebranded from Vector Custom Shop. So if you heard us talking about Vector and now we're talking about Method, that's the reason. So now it's methodarchery.com. Be sure if you need custom arrows built to your bow specs, you can go in there. They got an algorithm calculator thing. It's really easy to use. You plunk in your information, spits out what you need, and it shows up at your doorstep. Pretty perfect. Beyond that, we got Go Wild. We post there regularly. You can post that you would listen to our podcast. Be sure to tag us there so we can jump into the comments with you and participate. If you post to Go Wild and you frame something, there's a little checkbox or a little button you can turn on to frame something as a question. if you do that, if you have questions about saddle gear, public land hunting, permission, knocking on doors, how to this, how to, do a Euro mount, whatever it is you're trying, how to, do a turkey call or a diaphragm call without gagging like me. If you turn that little thing on as a question, you're going to get a lot more result and response from that community there because it just does something different with their algorithm. So just food for thought. You can also turn on their nearby feature to see who's knocking down gobblers in your neck of the woods. So overall, great positive community. We can't say enough good things about those folks. So that's getting run through all that here. A couple comments coming through today. Didn't do one yesterday. Yeah, so it's Wednesday. It's not Tuesday. I'm very confused about the days of the week this week. But to accommodate our guest schedule, we switched up to Wednesday. And Greg, as a result, couldn't make it in tonight. He's got some other obligations. And Derek, he probably could have swung it in, but it would have done really, really hard. And I can't blame him. I wouldn't have done it if I were him. So he's going to join virtually. He had a dentist appointment because he has bad breath. I'm just kidding. I don't think he has bad breath. I don't actually know he's not here. But hey, guys, thanks for waiting there while I kind of got everything all figured out. Welcome to the show.
What's up, man?
Just I don't know. Like I said, confused about the days. But so welcome to the show. We got Brian Rogers with Good Sit Hunting Gear. I might be saying the name wrong. Brian, correct me here if I'm off the reservation.
Yeah, it's Good Sit Mobile, but it started as Good Sit Production, so it's kind of a little bit confusing trying to rebrand for kind of the product side of things from the YouTube side of things. But Good Sit Mobile is like the actual website where you can go buy the products, and Good Sit Productions is still the YouTube for the time being. So,
hey, I know all about rebranding, so I'm the king of confusion over here. We had an entirely different name when we started out, so I totally get it. And Derek, can you hear us? Are you there? Just to check.
Yeah. Hey, can you hear me?
Yep. All right. Good.
All right,
you're there.
We're all logged on. Brian, great to see you. And folks, we'll go check him out at some point after this, during this. But your YouTube, man, I didn't realize how in depth you were with your YouTube videos. But man, I went back into your archives. You got a ton of great footage on there.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, no, I actually started the first video I posted was 2019. So it's weird saying that it's been 4 years now, but definitely flew by. So yeah,
that's awesome. Wow. An awesome journey.
I remember awesome. When I first posted it, thinking like man, this is dumb. Like nobody's gonna watch it, And that first one, and I still look back on the editing on it and think like, oh, I wish I would have turned the volume up here and slow mode here, and why didn't I stop the shaky footage and all that stuff? And that one's got the most views out of anything I've ever put out. No matter how much I put into everything else, that one has like somehow took off, and all the other ones are trying to catch up. So
as real as it gets.
Yeah.
That's how YouTube's got a long tail too. They're serving up content from like 2 years ago today. And I'm like, what the heck? Where's the relevant stuff like that I want to see right now? But YouTube's a great place to grow a brand. Can you, Brian, walk us through real quick? What is Good Sit Mobile? Like, what do you do? What's it all about? Let's kind of level set on telling the audience who you are and all that jazz.
So Good Sit Mobile is a company that I started back in September that is right now focusing on 3D printed mobile hunting gear. It kind of was born from the need for hanging elevated sits hanging elevated cameras. And I have a very hectic home life, a very hectic work life. And usually I don't get much time when it comes to the outdoors, especially for scouting. So generally I'm lucky to get about 7 days a year out there to hang my cams, and I hang 30 to 40 cameras a year. So I have to do a lot in a little bit of time. And I was spending 20, 30 minutes at a site to hang a trail camera, going up and down, checking it, coming down, it's crooked, finding a stick, all that stuff. And one day I just got fed up. I was covered in poison ivy, like always, mosquitoes, itchy weed, and I only get to go out in the middle of the day because after I drop the kids off from school, it's usually around 9 or 10. And then by the time I get out to the site, it's 11 or 12. And usually it's only on the 95-degree days when we get to go out there. Right. So
it's always those days.
Yeah. And so usually you set out to put up about 6 or 7 cams, and you you're lucky to get 3 or some days I'm lucky to get 2 up. It's so hot. But if I get 3 or 4 up, I consider it a win. And you always start off full of piss and vinegar, and then before you know it, you're begging to get back to the car, and every rub is starting to look the same, and you're questioning whether or not you're going to die before you get back to the car, and you're like, I'm the stupidest human being alive for even like putting myself through this, for a deer. And that's every single time that I go out scouting, it seems like. So anyway, I get back to the house and I just start drawing, and I got on Facebook and started looking for a 3D printer, somebody that knew what they were doing, and found a guy, and we started prototyping different ideas. And before you knew it, the one and done elevated trail cam system was born. And at the base of it is this little guy right here. And at first glance, because it's so different from what you've seen as far as trail cam mounts, it doesn't look like much, but it's pretty nifty. It's got 15 ports in total for zip ties, and you can put it on pretty much any camera. And you can go either through the body of it or all the way through like your corners for different cameras. So, and then once on, you have a bubble level on top, and you can screw this little guy here up against the tree, totally public land legal. And then once you actually have it on, the cool thing is, because I use paracord, but you can use it with a strap if you want. But it creates 3 points of contact, which no other trail cam mount does. All your other screw-in mounts are one pivot point, and this actually locks it in and makes it one nice tight system so that your critters aren't going to throw it off, during the season. And then on top of that, it tightens your paracord too. So like, I don't know if you've ever dealt with paracord, but it's stretchy, and so you think you got it, pretty good, and then you're moving it around and it's falling down off the tree. So as you're tightening this against the tree, it's actually like as you're locking it into where you want it to go, it's actually tightening down too. And we designed this stuff. It's not just some cheap 3D printed material. This is specifically designed for heavy duty outdoor use. And we even I didn't just draw something up and print it up. It was prototyped over and over and over until we got it right and made sure that it was going to last. Because originally I was really just designing this stuff for me. So once I finally got it to where I really liked it, went out and used it, I thought maybe other people are like me and might have a use for it. But just as something as simple as it being flat on both sides, I got it to where when I was screwing this thing in, because we tried printing it originally standing up, because you could print it like a normal screw, but then that messed with the structural integrity because it lays layers as it goes up. So we laid it down flat and actually printed up horizontally to give it that integrity, so it's not snapping. And I can actually take this thing all the way out on the camera and screw it all the way in without it snapping. So I wanted something that was going to be plastic but durable. You know what I mean? I wanted it to be still lightweight, but something that was going to last somebody, at least the life of a trail cam. I've only been doing this since September. I've had cams out for 6 or 7 months with them, and I don't really know the full lifespan of them, but the ones that I went and got looked just as good as the day I put them out. So I'm pretty confident in them, and so far so good. People are loving them. So.
Wow, that's a great explanation. Can you hold up to the camera real close there, the whole unit real quick?
Yeah, sorry, my camera on my computer is just a little bit blurry compared to my phone, but I can see you guys a little bit better. So, but you see those ports? You see those ports right there? So,
yep.
If you want to do like corners, these go through to the outside ports, just like these guys here. So you can run that all the way through, or you can just run them on all your corners there. That way, it gives you a lot of options, and you're not just stuck to one type of camera. And since I run all different types of cheap cameras on public, like I'm running, anything from your $20 to $30, $35 stealth cams to your, I'll buy these on Walmart on sale for $20 sometimes, because all I really need is usually I'm blanketing, bedding areas, different scrapes around bedding areas, entrance routes for people. And, usually I'm putting more than one camera in an area, and I'm planning, even though I generally don't get too many stolen, I'm planning on getting some stolen every year. And so I'm not dropping hundreds of dollars on cameras because, if I showed up and a $200 or $100 camera was gone, I'd be pissed. But when these things are gone, I just mark it off the list and move on. So.
And I think Brian hit it on the head when he said, this looks a little bit different than most of the things you've seen on the market. Like I've done the DIY screw in ones, which aren't, public land legal. Greg's played around with a couple ideas on mounts. And when I first saw what Brian had there, because I was lucky enough to get, I think, one or two of them. Brian, you gave me some the last time I saw you.
That was your deer dragging payment, remember?
Yeah, that was the deer drag.
I paid you off. That was like a mafia payoff right there. So I didn't have to help you drag. See,
you made out good. You made out good.
Just kidding.
No, but it's interesting how it works, because the first time I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, what is the deal with this? Like, how does this even work? But as soon as you explained it to me, you showed me. I haven't been able to put one out yet. I just pulled all my cameras in for the year, but I'll be putting some out soon. And as far as getting a camera off the ground and having it be actually stable with your like 3 points, it seriously makes so much more sense than most of the other options out there. And then just the way that the profile is on the tree. And then you mentioned using paracord, which I think a lot of guys who are kind of into this stuff or listen to any of like the Exodus Outdoor podcast, they've been saying for a while, paracord or fishing line, because it's less noticeable for public land guys who have sticky fingers.
Right.
But the paracord option, it just makes it so much easier for it to hide up in a tree and then hide from deer too. Because I mean, deer notice those cameras when they're sticking off the side of a tree at eye level.
Most people like when you see any of the other options, they're out from the tree, that far. And so the whole point is hiding it. And if you have that profile out there of this camera, you're not really hiding it. And that was another thing that I just wanted to keep it as close to the tree as I could, which is why that was, kind of born. And then you touched on the paracord. I really, I've messed with lots of different colors and kinds. And I like part of the branding of Good Sit is kind of this olive drab paracord, because from like I'm hiding it from deer. Yes. But about 8 foot up, you're hiding it from deer, but mostly from people. And I find that this olive drab fits into most trees better even than like your paracord. Your camo paracord, because a lot of times it seems like camo is still a pattern and it sticks out on some solid bark. If you have like a solid gray tree and you have some pattern going around it, to me, it's more noticeable than if you're just throwing up something nice and solid that kind of blends in. And then talking about the paracord, I came out with this little guy here called the Parabiner. It's paracord carabiner, real smart name, but
clever actually.
Yeah. And the whole idea behind it is you just tie a slip knot through your hole, and then I have a sliding. I sell these $5 paracord sets with the Prusix on them, and I just make a continuous loop with a fisherman's knot on a out of paracord, out of slightly smaller paracord, and then it can fit in there, and you just pull it tight. So it's a quick connect system for your paracord. And the cool thing is these things are small but mighty. We put 75 pounds on the axis and it still never snapped. And at the show that I just did at the Classic, I have over there, I have a 25-pound plate that I was holding up all day long. I would pick it up to show people the strength of this stuff. So pretty cool.
That is awesome. I wanted to just, for the folks that are listening in podcast land, when this ends up in podcast land officially, the trail cam is being held on by zip ties. Is that how I'm understanding that to work? And I'll explain it like this, because I got to see it on the screen here. And if you're listening in, you know how when you're like putting your belt through your belt loops on your pants, and then on your Levi's, you got that Levi logo on the back, and sometimes you can put your belt under it or over it. Like you can either put your zip tie through this product or through like a belt loop. Is kind of like how I'm, trying to describe that audibly for people. And so with that, all of those different holes and slots where you can zip tie through, you're saying that really doesn't really matter what the trail cam brand is. This device will work
right. So
with any of those.
I got
products, obviously not
to cut you off, but I got two. I just wanted to show you while you're talking about it, is I got two totally separate kind of cameras, and I don't know if the lighting's good enough, but like this wild game, you have to go on the corners, but then I can also run one at the bottom all the way through. And so just the corners at the top would be enough, but I like to put a little bit of overkill on there if you're going to hang it for, 6-7 months in the extreme temps, you're going to want to, you can throw a few extra on than what you need. And that's usually what I do. Cause zip ties do malfunction. They're very cheap, but there are, if you put enough of them on there, I should say I didn't have a single one malfunction on. I only got to put them on half the cameras that I put out this year, but I didn't have a single zip tie malfunction. So that was actually kind of a surprise for me. I thought I was going to show up and a squirrel was going to have eaten through one or something like that, but it didn't. Not saying that it couldn't, but for me, I got lucky and it didn't happen. So another cool part of it is it creates a place where you can actually keep your rope. And then if you need to access your compartment and stuff like that, like your SD or something like that, you want to mess with it. A lot of the times you used to have to like wrap it around and kind of get in the way of that. And not always. I mean, sometimes you could wrap it up here, but then you're kind of running by your lens and your sensor and stuff like that. So what I kind of like about it is it keeps everything nice and neat in the pack too, because if you have like screw in mounts and you were trying to put them in and have them ready to go, there's no way to cleanly pack those either. So
yeah, man, it's a slick setup, and all the public land guys who don't want to lose cameras, that's the best way to keep them, get them up high.
And a lot of guys laugh at this little thing here, but like my buddies call it like the trail cam boner, but this is the this is the I call it the spot on laser leveling system. And basically it is like a apparatus that you can put on your trail cam with a sliding Prusik as well. And so you just put these hooks either onto your paracord or onto your strap, and you actually don't even have to have the strap on there. You can just literally take your what do you call it, your castration band, turn it on, it stays on, hold it up. What I do during season is I just keep it like this in my dump pouch. And then when I'm checking a camera after I'm done hunting, usually at night, I will climb up, check it. And, when you have to get into a compartment that's pushed up against the tree, you're going to have to move it a little bit. And when you're tired as hell and cold and just want to get out of there and the coyotes are howling and, you're trying to get the heck back to the truck, it's really nice to just take that and make sure that you're still pointed right where you need to be. So this was one of those things, though, that people see and it kind of feels gimmicky to them. But I just made it because, like I said, I wanted to go up one time. So I get my camera kind of set the way that I want with that guy. And then I have this attached when I'm setting them in the summer. And then all I got to do is sit there and micro adjust and watch that laser go up and down into the spot that I want. And then I check my bubble level to make sure it's either front of center or back of center, whichever way that it's tilted. And then I know on those weird leaning trees, because sometimes you think you're looking at that and you get down and it's like that. And that's no good for your sensors, because if your sensors are like this, you're going to get late triggers when they walk by. You're just going to get hind quarters of deer a lot of the time, or either way, or you might not even get one at all if it walks underneath it or something like that. So when you're elevating, that becomes even more. If you watch, like you said, the Exodus podcast, where they talked about that becomes even more important, as being exactly right where you're at. That's why I called it the spot on laser leveling system. And another kind of key component to it is how easy it is. It's a cheap pet laser pointer. You can go buy 2 of those for $3 at Walmart. And the idea is you can go spend $3, have a couple extras in there. And if you ever had an issue while you're out there, you can just slide it back in, and no real problem, man. You just throw it in there. It doesn't weigh much. And it's been real handy for me. So
that's a really great product. So again, those that are listening and not seeing the screen here, what you're just showing us is basically like a laser pointer in a really cool compartment that you just toss onto your trail cam once you got it mounted, and it'll aim exactly where you want it to aim. And you have that bubble level that you talked about to make sure that the whole thing is not kittywampus. And honestly, it seems like these are some really great ideas. From an innovation standpoint, we just talked about this with someone else a couple weeks ago on the show. Like, it's really hard to innovate in the hunting category because everyone's innovating. So it's just really hard to find these micro adjustments, and you're doing that. And it's really cool to see that you don't have a team of people. You got another guy you said that started getting into 3D printing. Like, the barrier of entry is a good idea and the ability to go execute against that. And your trade show, was that the first one you did, the Illinois Deer Classic?
Yeah, that was the very first time that I've had
Oh,
the website up and
What
running
happened
since.
there?
Could you hear me?
Hello?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
I can hear
I
all
can
you
hear you.
guys.
Yes. Why are you guys all muted? What did I do? I'm assuming I did something here. Hold on, guys. Test. Everything looks good. What's the problem? Well, that's new. Hang on here. Let me see if I can figure it out.
How's your dad
Anything?
been, Derek?
What's that?
What would have
How's your
happened?
dad?
Oh, he's doing. He's been better. He
Good.
had that. He had a back problem that's been bugging him, and he actually just went in today to get a shot. One of his discs at the bottom of his
Everyone
spine
else
is
can hear you guys, but I can't. Which is the
Hey.
problem.
awesome. Now you guys can hear about my dad's back. Yeah, dad's back's not doing great. We'll blame it on your buck. We'll blame it on your buck.
Yeah.
No,
I was actually
Yeah.
going to say that, but I didn't want to keep bringing that buck up because I always feel like I'm constantly figuring out a way to like weave it into a conversation ever since I killed it. So
that's what happens when you shoot blanks, buddy.
you know what I mean? It's like, oh, yeah, no, I remember that from, like near the time when I shot my buck. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. No, so he just got a shot today actually to try to alleviate some pain, and then we're hoping. I don't know if he's gonna have to have surgery, but we're hoping that he can be up and running a little bit better for hunting season this year because not getting around too good. So we're hoping he can recover.
Yeah. I know
So
you
it's been
said he was going to possibly call in or whatever, but I don't know if he was still doing that or not.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see if we can get some audio back here.
You had one job, Eric.
Eric put some money and some time into his new system here, and one of the pieces, I don't even know what they're called, but one of the pieces that connects all of his audio thing, it just seems to kick out once in a while. Not supposed to do that, so I'm assuming that's what happened. Otherwise, Eric accidentally hit backspace left T plus and messed it all up.
Well, this is a $30 mic from Walmart, so
It's working good.
I don't want to brag too much, but
Is that of your design?
no, but I could make it better.
Did you sell any? I saw you're doing some like GoPro mounts for like in the tree. Did you have those at the show?
Yeah. So I sold the crap out of these, and the new bow hangers were the biggest sale. So I had a bunch of these made because they were the OG, the original product, but guys are loving these things, man. These and the new there's a main beam, and then this is the Booner bow hanger. Yep. And most guys have wider limbs now, but I still rock the old slim limbs, so I rock the little guy. So I'm still a little stubby here, and hoping to move up to this guy someday, right?
Aren't we all?
The joke is that everybody could use a few extra inches, apparently. So
I love how every name's got a clever little cliche behind it. That's good.
Right. Well, are we still live?
Yeah, I think everybody can hear us except for
Eric. Shit.
Eric's the only one who's missing out.
Well, the good sit name until we get him back is actually because all of like Brian, the guy that.
And you guys can hear me?
Yeah,
I can't hear you still. I still can't hear anything.
Yeah, Greg, you know it. Eric broke it.
What the heck? Happened?
We were not sitting there talking shit about you
guys. I don't understand. I don't know how this is even possible.
You kicked yourself out, Eric, of your own podcast.
What the heck? Literally can't hear anything you're saying.
Fun. Sorry, what were you saying, Brian, about the good sit name?
Well, so it was because Brian, my cousin that helped us drag, big Brian. He has a bunch of buddies, and we're all kind of in a Snapchat group. And back before I'd started Good Sit, I was just like taking my phone and filming myself out in the tree, and it was horrible. Like I was like barely talking. I'd be like, I was like, well, guys, it's going to be a good sit. And then I would just keep saying that. Like I would say stuff over and over, but it was like the same shit. So they kept being like, well, we all know that if Brian's going to be out there, it's going to be a good sit.
Great sit.
Yeah, that's all he does is good sits. You know what I mean? And so from talking shit about me, eventually the name was born. And then it kind of became an acronym for like good shit. So because there's a story behind that too. So that video that you watched on the public land, this is a little bit probably TMI, but oh yeah. Anyway, it came from like sky dumping off the tree and stuff like that. We were always joking about that from the saddle and stuff. And so then it was always like Brian's going to take a good shit, good sit and a good shit. So.
Well, I mean, I get where that comes from, but I think you got the slogan, good sit makes all the good shit, right? Like
that's what I said. That was my post the other day. It was, that's what I was thinking is going to be like the slogan across the top.
Heck yeah. I think that works. You got to get that big banner that says that for your next trade show. Huge banner.
When I also always thought about putting like an H up here and like pointing down in between the T and the I, you know what I mean? Like
just superimpose a little H in there.
Yeah, it's like a little bit, like a little bitty H, right?
Hey, so question for you. Eric was asking, I called him to figure out how I could get logged on so I could be the new host of the show since he's gone.
Yeah, that's nice. I like it.
He was asking me, he's like, so Brian? And I was like, trying to explain to him how I actually knew you and how we actually got started talking, but I couldn't remember. Was it something to do with like Wisconsin Whitetail Trail Cam and like you started the Central Illinois one, or was it? I have no idea.
I started the Central Illinois Public Land Hunters. So if you're in that group, I'm the admin of that. And so that may have been it, but it also could have just been off of like all of the other mobile hunting sites too. And maybe we were just, on multiple ones and had seen, I honestly don't remember either. So
yeah, just one of those situations. And like, we talk about it all the time because Eric and Greg, I mean, you get to meet so many people doing the podcast, and it's so much fun to rack brains with people who are on the other side of the country. But like, you make a lot of relationships off of like social media, which sounds so corny, but like you and I were one of those where we talked a couple times and then all of a sudden, next thing you know,
dude, here's the thing. I don't know what is out there in the universe or what, but every time I kill a deer or a big deer, there's always like this weird, crazy chain of events that come together. It's like the cosmos are just like lining up with like everything to be perfect. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when I killed that deer and I had met the landowner that it ran onto 3 months before in Walmart and exchanged information. And then you happened to be coming down and I couldn't find anybody else. And you and your dad were there just ready to roll. Like just a million things like that happen every time that I kill. And it's like, it's almost eerie because it's like, it's almost like some force is driving that to happen. So I know that might sound even really corny, but like I could sit and go into way more depth and detail of all types of crazy shit that happens. So,
well, no, I don't think it's corny at all. And like, there's, a whole bunch of different things about that, not to like derail it too much, but like, it's that whole good putting out, like put good out there and you get good back. And like, I'm a big believer in that. So like, I think that's what you see is like, you put positivity out there, you do the right things, and then the right things tend to come back to you.
I would fully agree with that because, if you look at everything with like, it's like you can like, I can choose to see those things that were positives, or I could flip them all and be negatives too. You know what I mean? Like, oh, well, it sucked because he ran over on the neighbors and I had to call him, you know what I mean? And like,
it was raining.
Right. Like I didn't have nobody else fucking available. And so I had to call Derek and his dad, you know what I mean? And like, so yeah, you could put a negative connotation on anything that you choose, but you can also spin it positive. So, and if you really, really, really look, there's always these crazy things that happen if you're looking for them. Like, just like whenever you left, you'd put in your good juju and all of a sudden you're shooting a giant a week later. Brian shooting his biggest buck, a couple days after that. Like things just happen like that, man. And it's kind of crazy. So
absolutely. And that's what my wife, I have a tendency that like up at the cabin up in northern Wisconsin, we always just used to name deer, not like Sparky or, you know what I mean? But like, we're able to follow deer for multiple years. So it just made sense to like give them a nickname. So we always kind of name deer. So my wife has always heard me talk about these specific deer. So I shot my buck after you shot yours. And she's like, well, what'd you name him? I'm like, well, I never knew that deer. Like he was a total stranger to me. So I don't have a name. She's like, but what if you had to name him? And I was like, well, I guess I'd call him Karma. because I helped Brian drag out a big one last week. Now
That's
karma, I got mine.
That's the karma buck.
That's the karma buck.
Yeah, I know. Whenever you shot that, I was like, I was like, man, after what we went through, that dude, he needed a 190. Like that was you. So there's always this running joke where it's like, about, calling people to come and help me drag out. And they're like, well, aren't you worried about them stealing your spots? I'm like, 99% of them never want to come back there again. So
that's
like,
how you know you're in the good spots.
Like Brian almost hates being my cousin because he's like, where the fuck is it now, bro? Like, where are we going now? You know what I mean? And he's like, are you serious? But usually, you know how it is. Either you're right by the road or you're so far back that you're questioning how the hell you're ever going to get it out of there. And that's, and there's no in between.
And I'm going to throw your cousin Brian under the bus. If Brian, hi, Eric.
Dude, that's never happened. That instance of whatever that was is brand new.
We're glad you're back.
No, you're not. No, you're not. Just kidding.
No, but I am going to throw your cousin Brian under the bus. So people listening don't know. But here I show up. Brian's got this buck down. He knows where it is. We're just going to go help him drag. And he's like, yeah, my cousin's here. He's a big dude. So I walk out, and your cousin Brian he's a big guy. Like,
he's a beast. Yeah,
he's a monster guy. Like, he looks like a giant football player. I'm like, oh my God. Like, I'll hold the flashlight. This would be beautiful. I'm expecting Brian to throw that deer over his shoulders and just walk out of the woods. I didn't see that, Brian. Where was that, Brian?
He let you do all the work, and he just sat there and held the flashlight. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he held the antlers, make sure they didn't hit any sticks. I hope he listens. I hope he heard me call him out.
I do got to say this while we're talking about it, though. Every time we watch the video on the recovery part of it, my daughter, we always sit there and we enjoy the way you're like, wow, like your inflection in your voice. Me and my daughter and stuff, we're always like, that's the best part, man, is like how excited you were about when we walked up to it. You're like, wow, look at it, you know what I mean? And you got kind of that Wisconsin or Minnesota twang, you know what I mean? So
I have no idea what you're talking about, eh?
Yeah. Funny. So Brian, what other products do you have?
Yeah. I didn't know if you guys wanted to make this all a infomercial or if you guys what you guys wanted to do. So I don't want to.
I just want to get a good idea of what you have in your arsenal, and like we can kind of drill back in from there, because I put the topic as like hunting gear, and it seems like it's all really practical. Like you don't feel like that if you want to like pump the brakes on me as far as being
no. I'm just saying I love these products. I eat, sleep, and breathe like sitting here in my basement messing with this stuff all day. But I just didn't want to make it all about it. So,
but are you an engineer? Like, how do you think this way? Like, what's your profession that like led you down this path? Because not everyone has this ability to just do that. You make it sound so easy.
Well, so I guess I better give some background for any of. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of listeners who have no idea who the hell Brian Rogers is. So I don't talk about myself in the third person. I was just making a joke there. But
good one.
Yeah. But so I've been hunting since I was a really, really little kid, really hardcore. Been into it. Like I started off as like the rabbit dog for my uncle, and started hunting very young, started public land hunting very young, mobile hunting very young. I've got over 20 years of mobile hunting experience. I can still remember being in those steel death trap climbers going up icy trees when I was like 14 for no good reason at all. And it's so basically it's always been an obsession of mine. And even back when I was a little kid, I can remember sitting there and like camo taping stuff and drawing like tree stand ideas. Like I remember drawing mobile tree stands, making them out of wood and trying to figure out how I was going to go buy a bunch of wood and make all these tree stands and set them up. So like constantly tinkering with my gear from a young age has kind of always been like just my thing. So no engineer background. I do finance at a car lot. I have I farmed for a long time when I was younger, and then I sold cars for a long time, and now I'm in finance for the past couple of years. And the one thing that it does, though, is as opposed to like the manual labor I used to do, is I'm not so exhausted that I can't focus on stuff when I'm home. Like at night after the kids go to bed, I'm sitting up, and like if it's almost to a weird level of how much I pull out my saddle, pull out my gear, throw it all on, walk around in it, figure out like just walk through the motions all the time of how can I make this better. I got a lot of other things turning right now too, for not just 3D printed stuff. I've got a possible hybrid like saddle setup, like kind of like the Renegade in my mind, but with a lot more thought towards us hybrid guys that like to use a small hang on and a saddle. But anyway, I guess in a nutshell, I've just always been ate up with deer hunting and tinkering with my gear and prep. And, that's just always kind of been my thing. So no engineering background, but I just sit, and I think one of my strong suits, and it's always weird talking about yourself and feeling like you're bragging, but if I had to like say why I can come up with this stuff, it's just because I simplify everything in my mind. And even when I'm hunting, like a lot of guys want
You're like the opposite of me. I complicate everything in my mind.
Right. And I can't see you guys, so I don't know if you can bring it back, but it's easier to talk to you when I can see you, but I feel like I'm talking to myself.
It'll look better on YouTube later. That's why. No, it's all good. It's a better presentation. The audience appreciates seeing you when you're talking. I promise.
All right. Well, I don't want to tell you, I'm not trying to run the show. I'm just saying it's harder for me because I feel like I'm talking to myself. But anyway, being able to simplify stuff is kind of what I try and do. So I've got some other products too, if you guys want to go over them. But
sorry, that was my phone. I don't know how that happened. Another new problem. If you guys heard that, I'm not sure.
Yeah, a little jazz outbreak. That was nice. Little piano.
Holy cow.
Brian, one thing you mentioned that I thought was interesting is like, I've heard of it before because I play around on all the mobile hunting sites and I'm interested in learning, and like I like refining my gear a little bit like you do, not to your level, but you hunt out of a normal tree stand, a small one, but you use your saddle and kind of use it to the best of both worlds. Like,
right.
You want to just talk about that for a minute and like how you do that? What do you do to make that work and make that comfortable?
Yeah, we can come back to this other stuff. So basically, I heard Eric talking about he runs the Method 2, and that's what I run now. I like the magnetic double panel saddle, 2-panel saddle, and but. So when I first started saddle hunting, which was actually back in like 2019-ish, 2020, actually it was 2019. I just like everybody else, I was watching, because like the craze was starting to happen and everybody was getting into it. And even though I had been mobile hunting for a long time out of like my climber and my like my lone wolf, my OG lone wolf hang on with sticks, I started getting into the saddle craze just like everybody else around the same time. And I thought that the whole idea was like you had to get this small platform, and the whole idea was like hang off and be part of the tree and yada yada. And for guys that works for, that's awesome because you can carry less weight, and it definitely works. There's a lot of guys that do. I'm a big believer in do what works for you. Hunt your hunt, not somebody else's. But for me, it was I had hunted out of stands for so long that for me it just wasn't the learning. I had shot at 2 turkeys and missed them both just to the left, and the learning curve of shooting out of a saddle and being at that angle was what kind of I was like, man, I don't have the time to put into constantly practicing out of the saddle, and I really didn't have the space for it at the house I was at the time either. So I bought the 1.0 and, or excuse me, I had the 1.0 that I was just hunting out of. And then when I moved to the saddle, I started using the 0.5, and I've never really looked back, man. That 0.5 was just like, for me, it gives you just enough space out from the tree. You can flip your seat up, and I'm gonna grab my stand right behind me here just real quick.
Oh yeah, this is a great. I like this setup a lot. It's like the hybrid.
Yeah. So one of the biggest things I did, and it's a little costly, but I went and bought the Therma seats. You know, it's just like the regular Lone Wolf seats, but it's the ones you can get at the farm store. And I cut it out, and I use the 1.0 seat that they give you now with the 0.5s if you want it, like the cushion that is, not the seat. And so I cut one out on both sides, and then I bought a large roll of stealth tape or stealth strip, and I stealth stripped it so that when the sound dampening whenever I'm up there, there's no metal on metal contact. And guys like to do that with paracord, but paracord can move around and stuff. But anytime that you can eliminate metal on metal, that's good. But one of the other key things is when I'm up there, I used to have, like on my OG Lone Wolf, and even for a little while I was running the 1.0 right there behind me, I would have my seat and I would have these like silicone zip ties or whatever that would go in, and then I would just take those out and flip it over. And that works well enough. One of the thing though is a lot of the times I'm flipping it up, I'm flipping it down. I don't want to be sitting there messing with it. And then your attachment methods usually wear out when you're constantly pulling them on and off. And you're not really wanting to use Velcro all the time that they give you with it. So I just modified my own seat here. And that way I can use it as a knee pad. And then I can also sit on it and it's cushy either way. And then another big thing that I like to do is, put a gear tie here to hang it. That way you can hang it, like put your strap around hands free. And then there's a lot of other little things too that I do. Like I'll girth hitch a, like a shot cord here with a little thing here. And then I'll just put my clothes over it, put this on one of the tabs and pull it tight. And then this just hangs whenever I'm hunting. And then that way it's real quick and easy. I don't have to get anything out and it's ready to go. But I could go into
I need to invite you.
What's
I need
that?
to invite you over. I need to invite you over someday to just go ham on my shit show.
Streamline you a
Don't
little
watch the OKS Hunter show. Just don't watch it. It's very embarrassing. Do you know who I feel like do you know who Byron Horton is?
I do. Yeah. I watch a lot of his stuff. Whitetail Experience. Yeah.
He's a finance guy, so he takes this approach of like really trying to do things that are affordable, economical. He's got a lot of great tips. I feel like if you didn't know him, you guys would probably be great friends.
Yeah, absolutely. I like his stuff. He's into the big wood stuff too, out in Ohio, if I'm not mistaken. And that's always been really cool to me. The guys because like it's not easy anywhere, and especially if you don't have like easily identifiable destination food sources and hub scrapes that are easy. Like just going in the big woods is something that is very intriguing to me, and he does it with pretty good consistency, it would seem. So I definitely watch a lot of Byron stuff.
Yeah, it's cool. I feel like you guys will get along, so that makes a lot of sense. Gosh, I don't know. Like there's so much gear stuff here, and Greg is in the comments a little bit, and normally he's here. We're doing this on a Wednesday, but I feel like he's another guy. He's always tinkering with something. He's always trying to modify something. He's always trying to make things easier. I'm like subconsciously making things harder constantly. It's a real problem, but there have been efficiencies. And I think I like this idea of efficiencies where you're learning something the hard way, and then you're thinking to yourself, gosh, there's probably a better way, and you optimize your hunting, and those micro optimizations, that stuff adds up. I don't know if you ever read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, but he talks about something called habit stacking, where he's taking things that he's already doing and stacking something on top of it. And then one of the weirder examples he used in his book was like, well, if I'm in the bathroom waiting for the hot water to heat up and brushing my teeth, I'll just clean the toilet because I'm standing there killing time. There's nothing else to do. I might as well just clean this effing toilet, wipe the mirror down with some Windex. I've just maximized and optimized my time, and I stacked a new habit on something. So now every time I take a shower, I'm cleaning piss off the toilet. Like
that guy
every
has
time I
that,
do,
that guy definitely has kids.
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. I'm potty training my middle child, and he's my daughter's my firstborn. So potty training a girl is really easy. Potty training a boy, it's a mess in the bathroom. It's really embarrassing when the guys come over for podcasts and there's piss everywhere.
So wait,
But
wait. I thought I was maximizing my time by just peeing in the shower. I'm not supposed to do that?
well, I got in trouble for that because it made the shower stinky.
I don't remember
TMI.
I don't remember what comedian he said, but he said, there's people that go to the bathroom in the shower, and then there's dirty liars. And then he said the hardest part is pushing it down the drain, though.
Oh, God. That's disgusting. Oh man. But this whole concept of like, while you're doing this, you're doing that. And you talked about when you're going on a public land and you're all jacked and you're ready to go. And by the time you're done, you're like, get me back into my AC where I'm comfortable because I'm dying out here. Like
Right.
You've clearly optimized and maximized your time. I'm using optimize and maximize. Like I don't think they're interchangeable.
Can I interject here? So
yeah.
Like there's different forms of nerds in this world, right? And
yes.
Like your thing that you love more than anything else is what you nerd out about, right? And the other day I was at work and I'm sitting here because my old bow hanger that I used before I designed this was a modified Hawk gear hanger that I made a video about on my channel. And the one thing that it had up on this was that if I ran into a situation where I had limbs coming out and I couldn't hang my bow like normal, I could hang it out on a limb. I could just wrap it around and it would hang and I could just hang my bow on it. And I was like, man, I don't really want to give that feature up, but if I can't make this curl because then it just takes up too much space in my pack and it just becomes awkward. And so I really, really got to thinking. And finally I went out there and I'm messing with it and I'm just staring at it, and I'm just constantly trying to figure out, like, rather than adding more, I'm trying to figure out how can I take away and still get what take away or leave the same and still get what I need. And, like, I'm a big believer in like synergy and flow and like one thing being able to do three things and working with the other things, you know what I mean? And when I finally figured it out, like wrapping it over and bringing this Prusik underneath and wrapping it on this tab and pulling it tight, like I was happier than if you told me I won $1 million. And so like my brain was exploding with endorphins and dopamine, like beyond probably killing that big buck. I was just so happy that my brain had worked through the problem and figured it out. So I think at the root of all this stuff is just like, that was always my happy place to go to, was sitting there and working through problems. And like, it might take me days or weeks. And then one day it just clicks. And then I'm just like, I'm happy for that whole day. So,
well, then you got it. Then you got to, like, if you're anything like me in that sense, when I have an idea or something like that, then it's like, oh my God, I'm like a pit bull. I cannot let it go until I'm done.
yes.
And it drives my wife crazy because she's like, where'd you go? Like, why? You said you're going to do something for 2 minutes. And next thing you know, it's been 4 hours. And I didn't really give her the expectation that I'd be doing something for 4 hours because I was like, no. I have to figure this out right now because it hit me. And,
Absolutely.
And that, yeah. And now we lost Derek. So I'm going to put him to the background until he figures out how to come back. Maybe his phone died or something. Oh, there he is. So that's something I think, like, whitetail guys, when we get into something, like, we get into it.
Yep.
A lot of guys are like, man, hunting season over, now it's ice fishing. Ice fishing's over, now it's turkey. Turkey's over, now it's open water. Like, there's always a thing to latch on to. And then when you have a thing on top of that that's like tied to it, like you're talking about, like this a bit of engineering and product development and problem solving. That's why we can't listen to our wives just talk about a problem. We got to, like, well, let's solve it. And they're like, no, I don't want you to solve it. I want to talk about it. I'm like, well, what?
It's like, well,
really
tell Debbie to go over there and tell Kim to shut the hell up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're like, no, you're not. They're like, you're not understanding. We just want to talk about the problem. We don't want to fix it, right? So.
Yeah, it's super confusing, dude. When I worked at a call center, I've talked about this on the podcast a handful of times, but people would call in, and I would fix the problem. Oh, great! My wife's tuning in. This is always happening.
Go get him, Holly. Go get him.
I tell you what, people would call in and be like, my ABC XYZ isn't working, and I was already able to assess the situation by using all these tools or whatever, and I fix the problem. And like by the time they're done explaining it, I'm like, yeah, it's already fixed. And then they wanted to talk for 10 minutes and tell me about the problem. I'm like, but I fixed it 10 minutes ago. It's
Mhm.
not always about fixing. Sometimes people do want to get that shit off their chest.
I saw
So,
a thing.
to
I
my
saw a
wife,
thing that said a guy said that you need to ask your significant other when they come to you, do you want comfort or do you want a solution? And
yes.
then they can tell you, and then you can go, okay, I'm just going to sit here and listen to you, vent, and then once it's over, we'll hug and go on about our day, I guess. So
I was so awkward about it. I'm like, so I did that. I listened. So then we're done now. Like it's good. That's what you needed. Like, what do I do? I'm like, I feel like I should have solved the problem here. Now I feel a void. So I need to go find something to solve now.
Well, I'm gonna call Debbie and we're gonna sort this shit out.
uh-oh. My wife's upstairs, so if she's listening, I love her, and she's amazing.
Well done, sir.
And 2 more episodes, guys, on our show. So we have an episode just launched or dropped tonight with Greg. I have one more episode of like the Eric injury, the urgent care buck, and then the last episode is the wives tell all. So to this point in history, we still have no idea what the wives actually said. So stay tuned for that one in a couple weeks. Yeah. No, this is a great conversation. I think there's a lot of practicality. Like, I'm not ending the show yet, but where do people find Good Sit? Like, how do we find you on YouTube? Like, where's the best place to engage with you? What does your trade show schedule look like? Where can people get to your website to buy this stuff?
I just signed up for the Mobile Hunters Expo up north at Kalamazoo, Michigan at the end of July. So that was something else that I was going to kind of just announce if anybody's, listening and wants to come check me out. I'm going to have all this stuff. I'm working on a couple of new products that I'll release either closer to there or at that show. And I'm really, really excited because they've got some amazing speakers, some guys that I watch, every night, like I'm sure you guys do. And I'm super stoked about that. Plus, I'm doing prize giveways with Bow Hunting League. So I just started that too within a couple weeks ago. Dudes. Yeah. Ben Harrison, kind of been working with him. So that's another really cool thing. And then I just partnered up with an Amsteel company, and I think I'm going to start offering an upgraded Amsteel connection method for like the GoPro mounts and the bow hooks if people want to pay for it. The paracord works really, really well. But if you want to get rid of just a little bit of stretch, I think Amsteel is going to be the way to go. But I'm still kind of messing with it, but it's in the works with a guy to work with him and start selling Amsteel attachments. Now, if you need to, if you want to just go find my website right now and, look at it and check it out. It's www.goodsitmobile.com. And that has all the products on there and a couple of videos, like product videos that will also link you to my YouTube, which is Good Sit Productions. And I know that's, like I said in the beginning of this, kind of confusing. I'm trying to mesh the brands, but like right now, my Facebook page is still Good Sit Productions. We changed it. It takes 14 days for it to be Good Sit Mobile. And so it's just been kind of a process of switching it over because, yeah, there it is. Yep. And
technology can be cool. Like I can actually make this technology do some pretty cool things when it works. But yeah,
is there any videos of you doing the sky dump or no?
So there's some behind the scenes stuff that I'm probably not going to say on here, but it's pretty funny about that video that has to do with that. And so someday I will.
Hunter moment? Can we talk about this a little bit? Or is this like an OKS Hunter moment? Can we talk about this a little bit?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know how gross you want to make your, like how much you want to gross out the audience.
I don't. You have not listened enough apparently to our podcast. If you're afraid, you are in good company, my friend. This is the place to do it.
Brian, we've got a chunk of listeners who are not dedicated saddle hunters, which is totally cool, and they may not know what that bonus feature is. So I think it would be awesome for you to explain.
Well, so I don't really do.
Like, this is a real thing. This isn't, because I've seen some April Fool's things recently. Someone actually asked us at the beginning of the episode, "Is this Weed and Whitetails?" Which was our April Fool's. No, this is not a Weed and Whitetails episode. Sorry. But go on.
Yeah. Well, the sky dump out of the like the Method is to me better than any toilet you will ever sit on. The Method 2, because and especially in the hybrid setup, it's almost like half, if not 80% of why I love the setup. Because
We've
so
talked
when
about
you drop
why they're a brand partner, because we're going to give them content that no one else is giving them.
when when you drop the seat down and you put your knees up to it and then you spread the two panels, it's you, and then you have your phone right there. Like it's probably the most peaceful that I've ever been in my life. Now one side note is watch out below, because sky dumps tend to carry 2 to 4 feet when you're on the side of a hill. So if you dropped a hat or a grunt tube, you're really going to want to pay attention to the you know the lay of the land, I should say.
That's pretty funny, man. No, that is one of the saddles where I think you probably could pull off, I guess, a sky dump, if that's what we're calling it, which I've not called it that before. I feel like you're gonna have to make a T-shirt now that says sky dump and there's like a silhouette of what's happening here.
Yeah, I've talked about it. So Devin Patterson on Retail Bow Hunters, he's a really great dude, and we talk every single time we podcast. We end up on the conversation of taking a shit out of a saddle. So it's one of those things where we can't not talk about it every time. Like, hey man, when was your last sky dump? It's kind of like a desk pop, in the Will Ferrell movie. It's like, hey, last sky dump was November 13th, 2023. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's good.
My last sky dump. Yeah, I call it a knapsack because like you can get like you're safe. You're safe in that thing. You can't take naps in a tree stand. I mean, you
Right.
can, but it's pretty dangerous. You're going to fall out and engage that safety harness, and that's not going to be pleasant. With the saddle, you're already engaged. You're ready to go.
Yeah.
He's got to curl up to that.
And the other thing too is it's safer, and you're still ready to shoot. Like whereas before, if you were like dropping trow and everything, like you were, it was a whole process. There was a lot more movement, and I just feel like it makes everything more streamlined. So if anybody's listening and is on the fence about a saddle, and especially a 2-panel hybrid system, you're welcome.
But yeah, I mean, it really is. It's one of those things that there should be nothing to be on the fence about. I had another thought about that, and it escaped me quickly. Probably
just remember, you can thank Good Shit Productions. I mean, Good Sit Productions for that wonderful tip.
Yeah, me and Derek were talking about putting the tiny H right there.
There you go. If you're playing the wind, you can shit wherever you want, and I think it'll be all right.
Well, that is a good. Hey, if you run out of milkweed too, I mean, that's a pretty good indicator.
Like a monkey up there throwing turds. I mean, shit is a pretty natural smell. I mean, things shit in the woods. It's pretty normal. I don't think that's going to scare off a buck.
No, it definitely, to me, it doesn't, because I mean, I've killed a decent amount of bucks and do a decent amount of sky dumps. So,
have you ever killed a buck, a nice mature? Because you got a lot in the background. I'll make you full screen again here, but like, do you got any other okayest moments? Like, have you killed a buck over a sky dump pile or what?
Yeah, so that's what I was kind of alluding. So I was kind of alluding to the biggest deer that I'd killed. I'm pretty sure he was looking over at a sky dump and then spooked him, and then he jumped away. That was the one that Derek, remember you messaged me that you were watching the Redemption one?
Yep.
I'm pretty sure the last thing he saw was my dump before I shot him. I'm actually positive of it, so that's why I say pretty sure. I know for a fact that that's what kind of spooked him.
Hey, life is about timing. Another second or two, and that buck might have been hightailing it away from your sky dump. You made it happen.
Yeah, that's if anybody wants a good strategy to throw the buck off, like you've heard of nose jammer and stuff like that. I feel like that's an overlooked strategy.
What, a nose jammer? Here's some turd.
Not a lot of guys are doing it, but it works.
Right. The turd jammer.
Tony had a serious question in the comments here. When you start thinking about new products, how much is weight a consideration?
It's a huge consideration. Everybody knows like we joke, me and cousin Brian are always like ounces equal pounds. You know what I mean? because everybody says that in the saddle world. But that's one of the coolest things about the 3D printed stuff and being so tough and still being light. I mean, it weighs next to nothing, just like this. I mean, this block and screw weigh less than a screw in mount. You know what I mean? But you can do more with it. And just like this guy here, I mean, you can get a lot longer bow hook without screwing it into it. You know, without the screw in is going to be metal and it's going to be a lot heavier. So just to me, I'm always trying to think of how can I make it more lighter, smaller, more compact. And again, in my mind, like if I can get it to do multiple uses, so this system is kind of all set up to be modular. And so the cool thing about it is each one of these bow hooks, and I wish I could take you over to my little post right there. I have a post full of the products over there, if you can see that.
Oh yeah, look at that. Yeah, that's great.
But so here, I'll show you this right here. The reason why this is created, it's not for a gear hook on this one. This is so you can actually slide it down into a his strap, 1-inch webbing, or a paracord itself. And the reason why that's cool is when I set this guy up on the tree, I can take my GoPro mount and just take, because this thing is the same thing. It's got a little bit different backing, but the idea is the same. It's made to either wedge or run stuff in this slit right here. And so when I hang my bow on one, I can hang this on another, and then and I also have a mini GoPro mount too. So if you wanted to have a second angle cam right over you, or this over to the side, because I run a 360 cam, which is what this was invented for, but it can be used for a regular, any second angle action cam. So the idea is I can carry just one of these with one attachment, throw it up, and then I can throw everything else on it. Just like any other attachment, but I don't have to have hooks and stuff like that clanking around. That's another big consideration for me, is like, I want it to be easy to get on, easy to get off in the dark. So really I can take this and just drop it off, just let it go down. And then whenever I hook it on, one of the really cool things about this bow hook is I can use this as a handle. So like you have gloves on or something like that, you don't want to be grabbing just the knot or sitting there trying to move it. So I can go up to my tree, figure out how big I want it with that, and it moves my Prusik, and attach it. And then once I tighten it, if you've ever used a Prusik, once you have a load on it, it's super hard to break it, right? Especially once you've had your weight on it. But when you've
I know what that is because of saddle hunting. So yeah, the Prusik knot that's what you use on your tether.
Yeah, well, and I've moved to a distal hitch now because of that. But on this, it makes sense because you need that continuous loop to fit in. It's not just fixed, right? Like it is on our tethers and our linemans. But since I have to use a Prusik, if you want, when you're done and it's tied up against that tree, you just pull out on the bow hanger and push against it, and it breaks it real easy. And so the whole system is really like, there's a lot more to it than just what meets the eye. It's all really thought out. The other thing is, a lot of your other bow hangers on the market, even your 3D ones, they go up here like an L. And what that does is makes it to where it can move around and come up a lot more. So if you get your string and your limb on there, and then
it's more like a Z almost, right? Like if I'm trying to describe it again for listeners. So
yeah, well, so
it's not like letter Z, it's like letter Z. Yeah.
Yeah, and the idea is you get you're tighter to the tree, because when you're saddle hunting, you're facing the tree and you're leaning out around the tree. So every little bit really does matter. And so this is the smaller one, like I was showing you. And then if you have wider limbs, this is your larger one. It's an extra 1.25 inches. But the other thing is, without it being that L, is this butts right up to the tree. So you're not wasting any real estate right there. You know what I mean? And so even though it doesn't seem like much, it really, like I said, ounces equal pounds, and every inch counts. And I want something that's easy to use and you don't even think about it. Just like whenever I'm ready to go home, all I do, like I can do this with my eyes closed in the dark, is I can just throw this guy over that. You don't even have to do this, and then I set this right there, and I can just wrap it up. Oh, of course, when I'm showing you guys, it's gonna fucking do that.
How it goes, man.
It's like
all right.
it's like your audio system. Anytime that
It's like you gotta identify as an OKS hunter when you're on the OKS Hunter podcast. You gotta
so
convince us you're one of us too.
whether it's even right or not, you just wrap that sucker up, and then you take your hair tie, throw it over there, and throw it in your pack. And when you're done hunting, you know it's never going to be perfect. You're just going to wrap that sucker up, throw it on there, throw it in there. It's still together for the next time. It's not coming apart, and then you just get back to it. And you don't have to mess with a knot or anything. You just take that off and just take it apart, let it hang out over your tree stand, pop down, and you're ready to go. Now, because I know we don't have a lot of time, I will show people one cool thing about the GoPro mount is, so if you have it up there, and if you've ever used a GoPro in any way, shape, or form, you know that these posts right here can weaken out over time and eventually crack on any of your GoPro mounts. And also messing with this little thing in the dark and getting your post from your GoPro down in there can be just a little bit of a hindrance and sometimes a pain in the butt, and you drop stuff, right? So the cool thing about this is you can leave your GoPro actually attached. You can leave that attached, hang your mount, and like whenever you go to hang your mount, you can keep it all together and just hang your mount really nice and tight. It doesn't have to be out. Hook it on and then go to adjusting it, or you can adjust it where you want and put it in. But you're never going to wear your posts out, and you're never going to be fumbling with little parts in the dark. You can just take it then once it's on the tree and just screw it back in, where it goes. And as you screw it in, I made this. I was going back and forth on whether or not to put a nut on there or not. But
so then you're gonna keep going. Yeah, and then you can position it properly and tighten it in the right angle, so you don't have to go all the way down to tight. Is that how I'd understand that?
Yeah, but so instead, I went with a thicker block. This was a previous model, and you can see the difference in thickness on the block there. And so what that does is, as you get down there and it's got more threading attached, you don't need to mess with a nut in the dark. You can that sounded funny, but
hey, nothing in the dark.
But you can kind of have it at any angle. It'll hold it at an angle, no problem, because you got a lot more contact on that threading. But anyway, there's just lots of little stuff like that I'm thinking of, and every time I'm trying it out, I'm trying to make it better.
No, that's great. The GoPro stuff is interesting, and like obviously the new GoPros, like the latest versions, like I think it's 10 and up, now have that casing is like kind of built into the unit itself, but it still doesn't change how you're interacting with it. Like it's still a good like additive feature. That's actually really cool. I'm glad I saw that. I'm gonna probably be buying a bunch.
I'm grabbing this here.
And even to like all the self filmers or like even the videographers that are looking for that second action cam or that second angle, like these are really good products to consider for those guys.
Yeah. So check it out. This is when it's fully extended, and it comes with the same kind of mount, but this one, instead of having the slit on the back, because I really wanted that bow mount solid, right? And the bow mount is holding a lot of weight, right? Or a lot more weight. This is only like half a pound, if that, when you get your GoPro on there, but your bow is 4 to 7 pounds, right? So the biggest thing with this is you can slip this back piece over a his strap. A lot of guys use his straps, or you can run paracord in there. But when you have just that little bit of weight, it actually acts to stabilize it whenever that weight is leaning out. And so that's kind of what the only difference there is. When you have a lot of weight, I didn't want to make a weak point for the bow hanger. So that's why you can still wedge it down in there, but I just designed that just a little bit different. And the cool thing is there's no metal parts. There's no washers. There's just these little teeth that make it to where you can adjust the pieces up and down. And so all you do is either twist it back or forth to tighten it, and you can put it in any configuration you want. And you can actually put this on a parallel limb too. If you wrap this around and tighten it, it will stay upright, You can put it up like this, or you can put one of the arms down and stabilize it, whatever you want to do. But it's really been pretty handy. And I really enjoyed designing that one.
So here's a question for you on the GoPro stuff. We all know that GoPro batteries are inherently terrible.
Yep.
They're the worst batteries. They don't last. GoPros are a pain in the ass to turn on and off, all that stuff. So what I've noticed a lot of videographers doing is they're plugging in a power pack, like a battery pack. Look at this. You've already got it figured out.
Yeah.
I was just gonna ask, where can you put a battery pack?
So I had I have it set up at my show with this little hook for that. Or you can, so another cool thing about this is, so when I was designing the bow hook, we actually came out with a bow hook that was based off of this principle right here with these little guys as an adjustable pitch bow hook. But I just don't believe that you're going to get guys to buy into putting their $1,000 bow on something that is not fully solid, even though it had a like a safety brake on it and stuff like that. And so I kind of scrapped it, even though I thought it was a good idea. However, this has enough power, enough strength. Like if you dropped your bow hook, you could still set your bow on this and have your GoPro on and have it as a bow hook too. You can configure this in such a way that you're not SOL just if you drop something. And I drop stuff all the time. And so it's just nice to have things that are backups. You know what I mean? And you're not just cussing just because. I mean, you're not going to be happy if you drop your bow hook because it's ideal, right? And you want to keep it out of the way. But in a pinch, you're just getting up in gray light and it's perfect, and you don't want to climb back down because you don't want to make any more noise. And you got this guy set up. You can put your bow, on this guy. You're just going to have to make sure and wedge it down in there and make sure. But this thing has plenty of strength on it. So I actually held my bow out on it for like a week straight just to test it, and no problem, never moved or anything. So
awesome, man.
You're like the antidote to the okayest hunter. Like we have problems, we know this, but look, if you're gonna go with good sit, you're gonna have backup after backup after backup, and you're gonna be covered,
Brian,
better than you would think. And you can take a shit from the side.
We don't want solutions. We just want to vent about our okayest problems. Okay?
All right, you know what?
I don't want a solution.
You know what? I'm sorry I said anything. All right, I'm sorry I did anything.
Stop solving our problems, okay? We're just trying to talk about it.
Yeah. I know. I feel anytime I go on a podcast, I always feel like I drone on. So I could go on for days is the problem. And like the guys at work.
How many have you been on?
What's that?
How many podcasts have you done?
Just Cody Jenkins from Whitetail Legacy. Shout out to him.
That guy's a dick. I'm just kidding. We love Cody. He's a great dude. I just know he was watching.
Cody's the man, Cody. And he's salt of the earth, and he's actually helped me put like when this was in its infancy and still today. He came out to the classic, hung around, kind of helped people, tell them that he's used them and stuff like that. He's mentioned them on the podcast, and he even mentioned it on the Last Breath podcast with Garrett, and he even mentioned it on the Exodus podcast. So dude is just an amazing advocate and a good buddy. And he was somebody else that I met online, and don't have enough good things to say about the guy. So
yeah, I've talked about his podcast is one of the few hunting podcasts I actually listen to. Oddly enough, I don't know what it is, but they paved their way by like talking to non-known people, like unknown people.
Yeah, that was me, man.
Yeah, well, it's just one of those things where it's like everyone's talking to like big names, and I think that's great too. Like it's good to learn from those folks. But then here Cody comes and he's built a really successful podcast by talking to no-namers, and it's just such great content. And Cody's a killer. So
that's Whitetail Legacy podcast, right?
Yeah, Whitetail Legacy. Yep. He does every Wednesday, and that's my day off, so it ends up working out well. You guys were gracious. Yeah, you guys were gracious enough to move it for me, but I appreciate it. But Whitetail Legacy, and then Devin Patterson has that Bluetail bow hunters, and now I got you guys, which I was really, really stoked to do because I follow you guys.
We're bringing up the rear. We're bringing up the rear.
Well, no, I follow all of your guys' stuff, especially I've been watching Derek's shed hunting videos here lately, and makes me feel like a chump when it comes to finding sheds. So
Derek's a shed dog, man. Dude, you can't compare yourself to Derek when it comes to shed hunting. He's a freaking beast.
Yeah, he
He's got
makes me
like
a little bit angry watching how many that he finds. So
Justin Sinan just commented a few minutes ago that he met you this last weekend. Justin's from Kentucky, and I actually talked to him last week while I was down in Arizona on spring break. He gave me a call because he found one of his best shed antlers ever. So we were nerding out on shed antlers while I'm in Arizona at the play place with my kids. I was like, honey, I gotta take this. He found a big shed.
oh,
your wife was so happy about that one. Yeah, Justin, you got to go on his podcast. He's got the Run and Gunning.
Yeah.
he just messaged me today. We had a good long talk, and he seems like a really good dude.
He's awesome.
Speaking of what you just said, though, when I shot that one in 2019, that public land redemption buck, it was at the end. You probably saw it was at the end of a lot of heartbreak, and it was just a long, long road. That and some other personal stuff, and I was really, really like, I was just. It was one of those deep breaths, long, deep breaths, like sigh of relief. And I'm freaking out. And I call my family, and my wife had my daughter. She was probably 3 or 4, and they were at the zoo with her friend down in St. Louis. And I'm like, honey, I'm a million miles a second. And I'm like, honey, I just shot a giant. I just shot a big deer. I know he's dead. And she's like, did you get in a car wreck? What's going on? And then I was like, put my daughter on the phone. And my daughter's like, Daddy, I see a rhino. And I was like, all right, I got to call somebody that gives a shit. I love you guys. Bye. Oh, God damn it.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, technical difficulties.
No, when I got the buck that's on the wall behind me, which you can't really see too much, I just got him back in the studio. In fact, it's kind of weird because Derek and Greg have not been here since this deer's been hung up in here. But and then the other buck that's on both bucks that are on the wall are the only 2 bucks I've gotten with my bow. And I called my wife first both times, and my daughter was the most excited both times. And I FaceTime right out of the gate. Like, it's FaceTime because my kids don't understand a phone call. They're like, why can't I see you? Because they're born in, this day and age where you can so I'm like showing them a dead deer, and they're like jacked as shit. My daughter's like, can I eat it? I'm like, yeah, we're going to come home and cook it tonight. Like, it's going to be great. We're pulling out freaking loins and let's go. And so it's a great experience.
So since I watch a lot, so like my thing, I'm sure all of our thing is watching YouTube hunting videos, right? Like, it's the only thing I watch, that and like podcasts or, stuff like that. And when I shoot a deer and I'll send a picture or bring it home, my wife and kid are like, it's not that big. They're like buck shaming me. And because they see all these giants on YouTube, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I know you guys, the big thing with your guys' podcast is no buck shaming. And I hate to say it, but I got some buck shamers in the house. So
we'll work on them.
My daughter's mine's like, is it dead? I'm like, yeah, it's dead. Like, of course, it's not alive. It's sitting here in the truck. It's not moving. You can understand. They're young. They're 5. Like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
No, this is a good episode, man. I think it's interesting because, we're really into the video podcast and the live broadcast. And I turned off the phone number because of the panic that I had when the audio stopped working. So maybe we could have got some calls, but I jettisoned that idea real quick when shit went haywire. But I think when people see this one on YouTube, this would be a really good one to watch on YouTube for the video podcast side of things because of how much show and tell you're doing with the actual products.
Right.
But I think there's still a lot of value in listening in also. You got a lot of nice deer on your wall there. I think you know what you're talking about. You know what you're doing. You obviously have a deep, deep passion for, inventing these practical ways. You might be one of the more practical hunting gear companies that I'm aware of. Like, I'll sometimes, like, as deer hunters, we're looking for, like, we don't know what we're gonna buy. We're going to a store thinking, what am I gonna buy? Like, I don't even have a plan for this money in my pocket yet, but let's see what speaks to me.
Right.
Like, I feel like I'm gonna go to your website. I'm just gonna buy it all. Like, it's all speaking to me.
Well,
I don't have to like look really hard.
I hope everybody feels that way. But the funny thing is growing up, like, I watch a lot of podcasts. So sometimes it feels like what I'm saying is cliche because a lot of people have the same story, like watching the deer hunters on TV that were hunting, the farms that were, not really where we were hunting. And then going out and buying the products they told us to, like the Acorn Cruncher and the Cough Muffler and all these dumb things, right? And
the Deer View Mirror. The Deer View Mirror.
Well, I owned an Acorn Cruncher. I owned an Acorn Cruncher for sure, and I owned the breeding hen squealer or whatever for turkey hunting, and like I don't know. It's just like after a long, I used to spray myself down with scent away spray. Now I will pump gas in my hunting clothes, take craps off my tree. Like it literally doesn't matter to me. I'm focused on entrance routes. I'm focused on scouting and historical data and stuff like that. But I just don't buy into the gimmicks anymore. And so that's why there wasn't hunting products out there that I wanted. And so I thought, well, it's time to figure out how to make it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's definitely there really are a lot of gimmicks out there, and there's a lot of big companies that are preying on people with these kind of gimmicky ideas because I think human nature tells us to take a shortcut. Unfortunately, by human nature, I mean like human beings are like get rich quick, get in shape. Well, I want to take a pill to lose weight. I want to, find a short path to become a millionaire. I want to get a big buck tomorrow. Like, what can I do? That's why you see poaching and terrible shit. But the ones that are like law abiding, it's like, ooh, I'm gonna buy this thing that will bring in the big bucks.
Yep.
Like, there's no shortcut for hard work and like experience from learning things over time by making mistakes. That's why we celebrate mistakes so much here at OKS Hunter, because that's the best teacher you're gonna have.
Absolutely.
You're not gonna learn something until you learn hard way. Like someone can tell you till they're blue in the face. Like that's why our parents would tell us shit all the time. We never effing listened. Like, don't speed, don't speed, don't speed. What do? Speed, speed, speed. What happened? Lots of tickets. Not fun. Should I have listened? Yeah, that would have been easier.
You said something wrong and you got popped in the mouth, and then you learned, okay, well, that's not something that you say in that situation, right?
Well, it doesn't happen anymore. Keyboard really won, unfortunately.
I do want to get this out though, so because I'm sure you guys might get this too, and I appreciate that people do this, so I'm not putting them down, but I get reached out to a lot. When you have success, people want to replicate that, and I understand because I was like that too. But what happens is they reach out and go, hey, I don't really want your spots, but could you point me in the right direction or something like that? And then what I type is always pretty similar, and it's the path to get them to the right spot, and it's never what they want to hear. And so I can just lay it out for you real easy if you want to kill big bucks. Like I said, I simplify everything in my life, and big bucks is not killing big bucks isn't simple, but if you do the right steps over and over, you won't be surprised when it happens repeatedly, because you're putting yourself in the best possible situation. And so there's always more to it, but at its simplest form, I break down pieces into like 200 to 400 acre chunks. I set my waypoints on everything that I want to view. And I set a 3 to 7 mile hike, sometimes as much as 10, but usually 3 to 7. And I'll go out with 5 to 7 cameras. I'm scouting and I'm hanging cameras and on those spots, and I'm scouting for old rub sign, old scrape sign, bedding sign. And then I'm also really important to scout the people. And usually you'll find people stands over the old good sign. And then you'll see new sign opened up about 60 to 70 yards in either direction, because those bucks have learned that that's where somebody goes and they don't leave the area. They have just altered their travel pattern. So it's super important to figure out your area, figure out where everybody tends to hunt, your entrance routes, all that stuff. But it's as simple as doing that, letting them soak, and then going back and studying what you found out, and then figuring out your entrance routes, your winds, your thermals. And then you start putting that together with historical data off of, previous years, with your scouting and with what you've seen on stand. And before you know it, you're just throwing smart sit after smart sit after smart sit. And I always tell people, I'm not that good, but all I have to do is be good 2 out of 20 times, right? Or 2 out of 10 times. And I'll kill my $2. So now when you're hunting a particular big buck, sometimes, that becomes a lot different strategies and stuff like that. But if you just want to go out there and start killing really nice deer, you got to stop making it so hard and big and such a huge task. It's as simple as looking at the work you've done and then applying it over and over. You can't skimp. You have to make sure that if, like, one buck I got back here, he was 250 yards from the road or from the parking lot. But I went a mile or mile and a half around the back way, came up, backdoored him, and and I knew where he was bedded. I knew that when the sign was opened up early season that he was back in there. But like if you just put in the work, like I said, the simple work, and then do the hard thing every time, you're gonna be like eventually you're gonna be consistent. It's impossible to not be consistent if you're always doing the right things as much as you can. You're never going to be 100%, and it wouldn't be fun if you were. But if you're 20% for big buck sightings on stand, you're doing something right.
That's a great way to look at it, man.
So my point is, if you're hitting me up, asking me to point you in the right direction, that is the truth. I mean, like I don't have a spot. I might show up to a spot and it's got people there or people on my cameras or no sign where it was. So I have 20 to 30 different bedding areas, maybe more peeped out, historical data, new data, and you're constantly trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together and use whatever weather you're dealing with at the time, wind, thermals, to make your move. So there's no such thing as that magic spot that's good every time you go in there, and everybody wants you to point them to that, and it just doesn't exist. So
magic spot. It could be magic one time, one part of the season versus another too, like or 1 year versus another because the crop changed or what have you. Like there's just so many variables, but you've definitely gotten really good at distilling like big concepts. And where others might be like myself, like diluting things and adding and making it more complicated.
Everybody wants to watch the podcast and like just totally. It's like if you can overcomplicate a situation, you're going to talk yourself out of hunting the right spots most of the time. That's the problem. Is
this. Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm thinking like, gosh, the same thing like with weight loss and fitness. It's like, well, I just tell me how you did it. It's like, well, yeah, my body's different than your body. Like maybe your body reacts different to amino acids or protein or like this muscle movement or whatever.
Well,
I want to make money with that. But
that's the other thing is like I could tell a novice exactly where to go hunt the exact right time of year, and he's not going to know how to enter it correctly necessarily. Quietly, he's not going to know how to think on the fly if he sees something else. He's not going to know that if he bumps this deer here, he might have to circle back. Like there's so many more variables that you have to learn, like you said, through failing, that me telling you a good spot to go sit is not necessarily doing you any favors because you're not learning anything and you're probably not even going to maximize that sit. You have to go.
But you can't tell me how to have.
What's that?
You can't tell me how to have You can't tell me how to have a good sit.
Yes,
your business.
just like Eric was saying though, like how fitness, like every body is different, like everybody's body is different, like how it reacts. But like when you talk to people who are like, or listen to podcasts who are like the serious big buck killers, like Brian hunts mature bucks. He's super detail oriented. Look at the way he designs his products. Like he's thought through every different scenario. And like the more podcasts I listen to, the more I notice that's a commonality with almost everyone who's like really good at killing big old deer is they're fanatical about the details. Like that's just how it is. Now, there are lots of hunters who don't want to be fanatical about the details and think about it to that level. And that's totally fine. Like that's what OKS Hunter caters to also. But it's like the idea of being in education, since I'm a teacher, like we have all these terms that most of them are wildly annoying, but lifelong learner is like one that they want us to be as educators and we want our students to be. And that's the number one thing. Like if you want to progress or like get any better, you have to like be open to learning and taking it in any way you can. And I think that's like what Brian just came down to. Like instead of giving me a spot, like let me tell you what you can learn about so you can do it yourself, right?
That's the whole idea of like teach a man to fish versus catching him the fish. Like people are wanting you to catch the fish for them, and at the end of the day, like you got to learn how to catch the fish. And to your point, Derek, what's the other one? Like it's not open mind, but it's like something versus static, fixed mindset versus open mindset, or something like that. Like if you think that you're done learning, you're done.
Yeah.
Like you have to have an open mind because there's going to be more to learn. So the moment you think you've learned it all or you know it all, go find something else to do because this ain't the thing for you. Deer hunting ain't it. You will never stop learning.
So if you think you know it all, every year, I look like a novice, and I tell this to everybody. So no matter how many times you practice in the yard, no matter how many times that you have killed big bucks, like that first sit or two every year, and you're wiping the cobwebs off, you're relearning stuff, and you're getting back in the groove. And everybody has to go through that, and everybody wants to pass that point, and you just can't. Everything is you have to earn it every time you go out. It's not like, okay, I'm good at killing big bucks, now I can just coast. It doesn't work like that. It's like,
No,
okay,
that's like, yeah. Oh my God, I love that. I'm interrupting you because I get so damn excited. Like that's like Stoic philosophy talks about you have to you don't just sweep the floor once. If you're like working on like keeping your ego in check, you every day you have to sweep the floor because new shit is falling on it. There's new messes and dust, and like you don't just sweep the floor once. Be like, cool, the floor has been swept. We are good now. No, you got to do it again tomorrow or maybe again today because your kid dumped a freaking box of crackers.
well,
Like,
you have
got
to
to keep sweeping the floor.
you have to fall in love with sweeping the floor, and that's the hard part.
Yes.
So like it when you like again, I hate talking about like regurgitated stuff, but when you kill, it's like you're happy, it feels good. But I can tell you from experience, and this is going to sound like a humble brag, but I've been tagged out the past 4 years in a row and semi early, and I don't like being tagged out. It sucks. I'm in love with the process. I just love the grind. Sitting in the rain, killing that big buck, I had this moment of clarity that I can't get from something else. This moment of like just absolute peace and clarity because I was grinding. I was pushing through and I was doing all the right things, and I put myself in that position. So to fall in love with that and then have it be over in the middle of the best time of hunting, it sucks. And so a lot of the time,
Gary Vaynerchuk talks about that all the time as a marketer. He's like, he sets this big goal. He's like, I want to buy the Jets, and he's like, but I love the process of trying to get to it. He goes, I hope I never do it because then the game is over. He's like, I kind of don't want to win. I just love the game and not the outcome. And I think a lot of people, and clearly because he's obviously one talking about that, that's the thing that people get hung up on is they want the outcome, and then they get it. And it's like, well, shit, I actually love the process.
And you see a lot of guys that out there, they watch all this stuff and they want to be that, but they don't want to put in the work, but they want to put themselves out there as if they're, and it's like, it's so easy to see, like all you have to do is this, you just have to do step 1 through 100. And at the end of 100 is what you're wanting. But everybody wants it to be at step 5. It's not at step 5. It's at step 100. You know what I'm saying? And most people can't stay through till step 100. And, I watch a lot of people, putter out after 2 or 3 years and realize that it's work. That's the problem is hunting. If you want to kill big bucks is work. And a lot of guys realize that it's not. I mean, how many times have you sat all day sits over and over and you're just sick to your stomach and you don't want you? I mean, like you love the grind, but like you can't take it anymore. You're like pushing yourself beyond your limits. And like, that's part of what you love, but it's almost unbearable. And it's really hard to describe the love-hate relationship with that. And then at the end,
I get burnt out. Yeah. And part of it's like the pressure of family. Like my wife is at home with our 3 kids, and I'm like, but I got to go kill this deer. And she's like, I need a break. And I'm like, but I'm so close to figuring out this puzzle this season. Like I figured it out. It's such and that stuff like starts to get to you and weighs on you. There's a lot of factors. There's work, there's your career, there's, maybe you're a student. I don't know. There's all sorts of different things. Same thing with podcasting. Like, how many people start a podcast and give up because they're like, oh shit, I got to do this every week. This is a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
I've been at it since 2013. Like it's wild, man. All of it.
Well, and so when I killed my first deer before the big deer, so 3 days before I killed this guy right here, I killed a 140 with some broke off tines. He was probably upper 130s. And again, I don't care about score, but just as a way of describing what the deer was, he was, somewhere probably in the mid to 130s, and then he broke off like 9 or 10 inches of tine. But I knew I was very certain that when I went in there on the first sit that I had a really, really high odds of killing. I actually told people at work, like, hey, I found a spot that I'm definitely going to kill a deer when I go in it, and it happened. And the only reason that I was so certain is because I put in so much work, and so much work that when I took a kid from work, Greg, it's called Greg's Buck. That's the video. When I took the kid from work, I wanted to show him what hunting's about. And it's kind of like baptism by fire is what I always call it, is if somebody wants me to put them on a spot, I always say, how about this? You go scouting with me in the summer and hanging trail cams. And if you still want to hunt with me after that, I'll take you anywhere you want to go. I'll help you drag out your buck, you know, all that good stuff. And most people don't come back. You know what I mean? It's simply, it went like you said with the podcast, and not to toot my own horn, like I said, but I fell in love with the work. So it's not work to me. It sucks, but it's not work. And if you just look at it like this is horrible, why would anybody want to do this? Then you're never going to get good at it.
Yeah, this doesn't work for me. I'm drinking a bourbon talking about deer.
Work
I gotta be careful
sucks.
with that.
Sorry,
It is work.
I
There's
get
work.
long-winded, but that was just like the one point that I really like to get out is because people watching this, a lot of them maybe they don't have a lot of big bucks under their belt, and it doesn't have to be as complicated as people make it on YouTube and everything else. You can really just do some work, go out there, throw some sits at your work, and eventually it'll happen for you. You just got to be smart.
But look at the shirt that I'm wearing. Shoot deer. Like you have to actually shoot some deer to get there. And I've used this analogy way too much, but you can't go to the gym as a 150-pound twig and expect that you're going to lift 225 pounds on the bench press day one, or that you're 400 pounds you want to trim down to 180. Like, you got to put the reps in. You got to like actually get some practice in. So this whole rhetoric of like, I only want to kill a 150 or 170 or 200 or 180 or whatever else it's going to be. We were in Iowa, man. Every single high schooler there was showing us pictures of 180s. Like 160 was a small.
True.
You're like, oh, that
160. Man, like,
you're like that one.
You better go. You're like, no, man. I passed. I'm like, quit passing. Start shooting. You haven't shot shit yet. Like, go freaking shoot a deer.
I said that. I said the same thing on the podcast with Cody. Is like, I don't pass 140s because when the 170, 180 steps out in front of me, if I haven't shot the 140s and I haven't been there 100 times before, I don't want to be going to the Super Bowl on the first game that I play. Right. So I want,
like, your balls haven't dropped yet. Like, you need to get out there, you know?
You need to know how scary it is to have a 140 in front of you before you have that 180 in front of you. And I was scared, I was scared to death when that 180 stepped out. I drew and my adrenaline had me just holding it draw. I couldn't let down the whole time. You know what I mean? And, but I had the peace of mind. So just as like a point to it, when I was at full draw, I had the peace of mind, like, okay, you've been here before. Turn your hand. You have to turn your hand. All right, you have to settle the pin.
Telling yourself to work the mechanics. That's great.
Yep. So you're working on bow mechanics, and then all of a sudden you're like, all right, all you got to do is put it in that opening. When he gets in that opening, you're going to let it go. So if I hadn't shot every deer that I'd shot leading up to that, or the deer 3 days before, and that was the first time, I'm just going to fucking let her rip and let it fly and probably not shoot that deer. So people that are listening that think that shooting a 170 every 6 years is the way to go, I think you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah, I'll take 120s all day long. Like, I don't care.
And
right.
like,
what I say, we had Tony Peterson on last week, and I was like, the bonus of shooting a buck is it's got handles to drag it out on. Like, that's my bonus right there. Easy drag. I don't know. It's stuff. No, but like, let's remind people where they can find you. Brian, what's the website domain? I put in the link here, but I'll have you state it off. Call out your YouTube again so people can go subscribe, and let's bring the plane for landing.
Yeah, it's www.goodsitmobile.com. And also you can find us on Facebook and Instagram as still the Good Sit Productions for now, as well as the YouTube is Good Sit Productions. And all of the hunts that I've talked about over the last 4 years are on there. So there's there's 8 videos on there of kills, and then like Brian's buck was on there, the one that that I self-filmed, or I filmed him on after killing the 2 bucks this year. So there, and then also there is some gear how to and like utilizing different strategies on there too, and so check it out.
Yeah, so your
Cool.
giant buck from this last year, the video is up. It's awesome, super cool that Brian got that on video. And if I'm not mistaken, did you have a product giveaway that you were running with promotion on there?
Yes, I'm glad you said that. So
yeah, grab that rack, buddy.
So the guys are guessing on the gross and the net score, and I'm going to
Oh.
give away one of each of these products that we're talking about here, and they had to like and share the original post and comment on the original post, and without the closest of the gross and net without going over is going to get one of every one of the products that we sell here. And
Is that a 13-point buck?
he was a 13 pointer, and he broke off at the base, his brow. And on the trail cam video, or the trail cam pic, he was the brow was up here. And so I'm guesstimating that at like 4 to 6 inches, somewhere in there. And so he
Here, holy.
I know a guy who can fix that.
Yeah, I heard there was a guy up there that could fix that, eh? Hold up.
Derek does good antler repair, for those that don't know.
Well, and Brian got that picture from you. That thing's amazing, man, of his wife and baby. That was really, really cool. And what's funny is whenever you were helping us out, or helping me out, drag that out with your dad, I had no idea about the whole art thing. So afterwards, I'm looking on your art stuff and like, holy shit, I was like around, like an art legend and didn't even know it. You know what I mean?
That might be pushing it, buddy.
Well, you're
one of the greats, and I know he's the great outdoors is his Instagram, but there's a lot of people that don't even know that they're in the presence of total greatness. I don't know how I did this. I just put a sticker thing on the screen. Sorry about that. But by the way, if you want a sticker,
I got to read off the gross and net. What are your guys' guesses? Derek's already seen it.
I don't know, man. That looks like a 178-inch deer. But that's very confident because I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
That's a damn good guess.
Yeah, and if it had the brow, you were right on the money. So the only
so weird.
The only reason that I even got this one scored is because I was close. I don't get deer scored most of the time, nor do I really care. I want to preface that the score doesn't matter. It doesn't take away from the enjoyment of shooting a deer. But for the purpose of the fact that I was at the Illinois Deer Classic anyway, and I was going to have him there just to show people the buck from the video, I figured why not take him over and see if me and BJ's, my cousin's scoring job at 4:30 in the morning, hopped up on Red Bull and soaked and exhausted, was anywhere close. So we were at 168 that night. And so I thought, I'd always wanted to hit that 170 mark just as like a goal of my own, like a personal goal. And not that it took away from the deer, but when I found out it was 168, I thought, man, I'm, this freaking close to breaking the marker. And so I took to the Deer and Turkey Classic, and he ended up grossing 172 and 5/8. And then he netted 157 and 7/8. So if he'd have had his other, and he went non-typical, but if he'd have had that brow on there, you were right on the money at the 178 ish mark, and up in the lower 160s as a net. So pretty awesome.
Greg would give you so much shit. He'd be like, that's like when he said I got lost in my own basement. If you saw that first episode.
I think there was a dude on here too that got pretty close. Let's see if
someone just commented on our feed here.
What's that?
Someone just commented on our feed 168. That was their guess. I don't know who it was because they're coming from the Facebook group that we have. But
well, here let me call out the what I believe is the winner. This is kind of preliminary because I'm just doing this on the spot. But I looked a little bit before and to see who was pretty close. So let's see here.
So you're the winner is going to be for the net score or the gross score?
So both without going over. Closest to both without going over.
It's like The Price is Right.
Yes. There was one guy who went way low, and I thought he was going to win because everybody was just a hair over. And so let me see here.
It was Ryan Crossan, I guess. He's out of Texas. Ryan's a good guy. He guessed 168 on just like the live feed right now.
So regardless of what number that deer took down at the Classic there, being able to, help hype you up and enjoy the moment, and being there when you took your biggest buck was pretty awesome. And my dad always kind of instilled in us right away that like anybody gets a deer, your job is to be their number one fan and like make it a special moment for them. So like Dad and I were super honored that you asked us to come and we're glad
Oh.
that we got to enjoy that night with you.
Dude, I loved it so much. Like I was so happy. Like I told you earlier, like how the universe works. I was like, man, that was so awesome. Just the whole experience. There's one part in the video that you may have seen, but I want you to watch it, where me and your dad go to shake hands and we muffled it. And it's like the whitest handshake ever. And at one point I wanted to zoom in slow-mo on it. But I just thought it took away from like the excitement of the moment, like making it. But tell your dad that when we meet again, we're going to do a better handshake. So
You'll connect.
yeah.
That's like stepbrothers. They don't know like what to do.
Yeah. I went into Derek and we did like the fist bump, and then I went in with him, and one of us tried to fist bump and the other tried to shake, and
You did the turkey.
so
That's just too much excitement.
I will be announcing the winner once I look through all that stuff and figure out who actually got closest, and then I'll put it on the post, whoever's watching.
Sounds good.
That's great.
Yep.
That's great. I'm glad to know that I was actually fairly accurate in my guesstimation.
That was
'Cause I
really
have
good.
no
actually.
concept of it.
When I shot him, I said, that's a 180-inch deer, and usually I take 10 to 15 inches off of whatever I thought he was at the time when I shot him. So I was pretty proud that I was even closer. So
Yeah, awesome deer, buddy.
Sounds like something congrats. I feel like, I don't know if did you say you had a name for that buck or not?
So this is the single most. So when I shot this buck, I had pictures of him from the year before, from historical data, within 1 year and 1 day. So he was so usually on Halloween, there's always this giant buck. Actually, the King of the Hill buck that I shot him like 12 days later, but he daylighted on Halloween, and then this buck daylighted on Halloween. And it seems like there's always that deer that I'm like, son of a gun, I would have been right there. But I would take trick-or-treating with my kids over shooting any deer any day. But why do the big ones always happen to be on their feet on that day? You know what I mean? And anyway, within a year, he was October 30th, within a half an hour of the same spot in the same time of day. It was like 5:30 when I got him on camera the year before, and like 5 o'clock when I ended up shooting him in the same exact spot. So another thing is historical data is huge when it comes to these old bucks, because they're really adept at figuring out human pressure. Like I got one that's 8 years old that I've been following. He daylights all the time, and I've never seen him on the hoof. But like their only chink in their armor is that they are consistent, right? Because they figured out the doe groups they like, they figured out the food they like, the hill they like. They're really good at figuring you out and getting away. And the only chink in these big guys' armor is how consistent that they are. And so as they get older, I think a lot of what's that?
Creatures of habit.
Yes. And so I've killed at least 3 deer with historical data, and other deer I killed in spots because of historical data, but 3 specific deer that I've killed, like one that I had at the Classic, I killed within 4 days of that day in the same spot. So you just, if you are running cameras and you're letting them soak all year, and then you go back and analyze that data, a lot of the times you're going to see patterns of these old deer, because like they come in and they know where that first doe is going to come into heat that they're used to in that doe group. So they come in and they hang around that scrape. They might be bedding off that point and coming in and checking that scrape just like they did the previous year. And so if you can get just that little window into where that buck likes to come, a lot of the times it can be the nail in the coffin. So
awesome, man.
The antler rack, for the listeners that can't see the video, it looks like a chandelier or something. Like I don't even know how to describe that thing.
This is my favorite part of it, is just a shark. I call it like a shark tooth or something like that. He didn't have that the year before. Oh, and I got to give a shout out to Josh and Jesse Harburn. When I was at the deer, so I sold a Jeep to a dude. I posted about this, but I got to say it because it was pretty amazing. I was at the Deer Classic, and they came the first day or Saturday and bought some stuff. And then the next day they came back with a giant canvas of this buck in velvet in a bean field the year before that they had a picture of from their car. And they gave it to me. So that was really, really cool. And
that's awesome.
Also, shout out to the wifey who was in the middle of an F2 tornado on last Friday, coming back from the Classic. She was up there working it for me. I told her to leave early to beat the weather, and I ran her straight into an F2 tornado, and she was inside of the tornado in her car. and the truck behind her got flipped up in the air, and there's still pieces of that truck up in the trees. So shout out to the wifey too.
Holy shit.
Dang,
That's almost
Texas.
worse than when Eric dragged his wife out to that swamp to go get that buck that he got.
Yeah, the
The shit
tornado takes the
our wife
cake.
put up with, man. Yeah,
She-
holy crap.
She was
Yeah.
she was freaking
wild.
out, but thank God she was okay. So yep.
No, thanks for being a guest on the show. I'm sure you'll be a regular and have you back on. And anytime you're up in Wisconsin, you're welcome in the studio in person. We'd love to have you here. I always like when people are here physically. It's always a nice time. Virtual worked out. I lost my audio. Derek, thanks for carrying me through that. Whatever the hell happened there, I have no clue. But we'll end the live broadcast, and we'll pump this out into podcast land this evening. So if you want to listen in, hear it again. If you've watched live, check it out.
Don't
in
judge me
podcast
for
land.
the
But
sky dump either. I don't want people to think that's the only thing that I do, but I do a lot of good
He's
stuff.
Only
not even
positive
hunting. He's just out there pooping in the woods.
All right.
That's good. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I'm going to end live broadcast. Have a good night, and we'll see you next week.